Hey, it's Jason ODB, also known as the Lincoln Addict. Hit you guys with another video. When I did a video about the AM/FM radio, which was an option, I hinted that I'm going to do this video about the tilt steering column. One of the things that intrigued me about buying this car was, although I have the 64, my car doesn't really have any additional options. So I was intrigued to be able to kind of go through and show some of these things. Being a huge Lincoln fan, there's not a lot of videos out there on this stuff. Thanks to Nathan Wilson and things like that, there's some very cool tech videos, but I kind of wanted to show some of the optional side of things. So that's what I'm going to do today. Now, I just moved the car outside. I started it up. It starts really well. Robert said one thing about this car is, man, turnkey, thing fires up. It's been sitting a week or two. And I'll show you guys the video here in a second. And the video that I just did is before the car's been started. Now, I did press the lever, the button here, and I didn't try to move the column up or down. I just kind of assumed that more than likely there wasn't any vacuum built up in the reservoir. So you can basically hit this, and if you don't try to move the column up or down, then you don't really know if it's got the vacuum in it, so to speak. So I'll kind of show you guys the video here on before I move the car. Now, my understanding, that, or at least my experience with this, is if the car is off, I haven't been able to get the column, I don't think, to move up or down. There is a reservoir, okay, and my assumption is very much like the door locks. The reservoir is there for that particular reason. Now, in my 64, very similar to this car, again, it wasn't running very long. I haven't really messed with this stuff too much when the car's off, just because my car stays inside and I'm not too concerned with locking it and things like that. But you'd imagine with the vacuum reservoirs, that's because you want to be able to do these things, maybe before you start the car. So let me show you the video real quick on, you'll be able to hear, hopefully, the solenoid activate, and that'll kind of make sense, kind of a before the car was started after sitting for a week. Okay, this is before I moved the car, or before I started the car. The car's been sitting now for a week or two, and as you can imagine, the vacuum is, it's going to leak out over time. It's kind of like the door. So I don't use the door lock feature, but I know that, it's, from what I understand, like, this is going to leak out over time. So, for instance, here's the button. You can hear that clicking, hopefully. That's the solenoid. So, of course, it's not going to do anything because there's no reservoir right now. So I wanted you to have an example of before the car's been started, before the reservoir tank is full. Okay, so that's kind of the before. Basically, how the system works, as far as everything I can tell, is, and that's what I'm going to kind of go through, and I'll show you. I got a few things from different user manuals and things like that. But in the Lincoln forum, there's also a couple of good threads where people have posted images, and that's been awesome. But essentially what you have is this solenoid right here. And it's activated whenever I push the lever. So we'll talk more about that in a second. You've got your wiring here that runs right up to, through that sheathing, and right back here where all the other wires run, okay? You have your two vacuum lines. They go right here. One goes obviously in the car, it tees in. The other goes right into this guy right here. And it's mounted behind there. And I think I have an image from Robert, possibly, or from someone else in the Lincoln forum that has posted it before, but you basically have your reservoir tank there. Now, I only let the car run for 30 seconds maybe when I pulled it out here. My assumption is that if there's no leaks in, let's say we were driving it for an hour or whatever, or 10 minutes, it's going to have enough air in that reservoir. So like, let's say you come out from dinner, feeling a little full, you get in the car and you're like, damn, need to put the steering column up. You should be able to do that. My understanding is if the car's even off, okay? But basically what I want to do is I'm going to go through a couple things here and then I'll show how it kind of works. Now, the vertically adjustable steering column, as it's known, was introduced in '64. Pressing a button, as I mentioned, at the end of the transmission selector lever basically releases that solenoid that I showed you over there. That allows the column to be moved or up or down, releasing it, okay? So when you release it, it's going to lock it in place. Okay, so I'll do my best to demonstrate that. Now, one thing, the easiest way to tell if you're looking at a car like on eBay or you're looking at a car, when you see this is the big thing right here. This right away tells you, for the most part, if it has tilt column. Now, of course, someone could have changed this, but I mean, these are pretty rare overall. But bottom line is, this right here shows you where it's at. One of the things that's different is it does not tilt right here, okay? I have a hot rod truck that has a Flaming River steering column in it. As you know, if you've had anything over the years and you've changed anything, for the most part, when you're doing your tilt, it's a pivoting right here. The difference in these cars is it's actually pivoting down here at the firewall, okay? So I'm not going to show any kind of comparison under the dash because, a lot of people, it's just going to, go over their head or, whatever. But where that black is at, you can kind of see that's where it's pivoting right there. You see that big boot, as I call it. You have this white part right here, and that's doing the work, okay? So you push the button on the lever, it activates the solenoid, you've got your vacuum built up, and then you can basically take and move the column up or down. And then when you let off of this at the end, it's going to lock in. And this, like Blair was explaining to me when we went to South Florida recently, I was talking to him about this car that was going to be coming. And, he was talking about, obviously this is just kind of showing you where it's at. You know what I mean? So for the most part, since I've got this car, I've always left it like on 3, kind of in the middle. I don't really mess with it too much, but I did want to at least display how it works today. Now, the one thing I'll tell you is in '64, 7% of the cars came with this, which was 2,500 cars. So 7%, if you add up the sedans, you add up obviously the convertibles, and I think like technically, let's say there's a couple limos, there weren't that many, but basically 7% gets you to that number. 65, I know some of the records were burned and there was a fire back in the day, and I don't know if the data just isn't available, but let's just say 7%, that's going to bring you to about 2,800 cars had this, give or take. Now granted, the feature wasn't that expensive. So here's the crazy thing, vertically adjustable steering column, I had to double check, was $60, okay? So that's all the feature was. And for me, the important thing, or the historical aspect of it, isn't so much that the cost of it, but like with these cars, as we've talked about, there weren't like a ton of options available because they came with so much stuff already. So that's one thing I want to continue to highlight, as I go on with this car is this one's not a highly optioned car. Although the tilt column and AM/FM radio, those are two of the key things. It does have a few other options that I'll talk about in other videos. But to me, the historical piece more is it's rare, to have this. But it's also the fact that it wasn't super expensive. It was just probably, most folks were like, what is that? It's probably a newer feature, if you will, for automobiles. I would guess a lot of cars just didn't have that at the time. But that's one thing I did want to show. The one thing it doesn't have that I think is just worth noting is it doesn't have the speed control. So automatic speed control, also known as, a lot of us just call it cruise control these days. But I know in those cars, you basically have a challenge running a dual master cylinder. So you can see here, master cylinder has been changed. I highly recommend that for any Lincoln owner. They came with a single reservoir. I know through 64, I think 65 had a single as well, but it's dangerous because if it goes out, you lose all brakes. But if you have the speed control, everything I've been told, the dual master will not work. So I'm sure, you can modify it and that type of thing, but, just to kind of throw that out there. Again, this car does not have the speed control, which I think is a cool feature. And you'll see those, it depends on the year, but like in 65, you would have had this dial, as I call it, right here. And you'll see them come up for sale, but you really don't get everything you need to put it in. But again, you would see that right here. So that's for another video. So like I said, there would have been 2,541 cars, I believe in 64, that had the tilt column, also known as vertically adjustable steering column. There would have been, if that same number were to hold true, if we just use basic math, it'd be like 2816. So this would be of potentially, less than 10%, right, for 65. I'm assuming there were 40,230 65s made. That was 36,824 sedans, 3,356 convertibles, and 50 limos. I don't know how many limos were made in 64, but I know there were 3,328 convertibles. So very, very close to 65. And then, of course, there were 3,209 sedans for 64 compared to 36,824 sedans for 65. So obviously the sales did go up. So a couple of things there. So the main thing I think you guys want to see, I always talk about this. John Cashman, anyone will tell you, don't leave these cars idling. Okay, this steering column needs to come out and it needs to be rebuilt. There's a piece of in the engine bay that you have to you have to put a coupler in there or go to the usual suspects. Nathan Wilson has done videos on that. There's a great one out there. I'll put a link in the description to Nathan's video. But you don't want to ever start these cars and get out of them and let them idle, because they can and they will shift into reverse. So I've got my foot on, that's the PSA, public service announcement I always use. Got my foot on the brake. And basically what I'm going to try to do here with my knee, I'm going to push the end of the lever, and you can see that goes right up. It's now on high. Have all kinds of room. And I'm going to push this in. It clicks. And that's low. You can see it's down here. Okay. And naturally, I'm assuming most people would just have it in 3. I literally, right there, I don't know if you could kind of tell. Let me push it back down. Literally, it's this easy. I'm going to push this, and it's going to start to want to kind of come up on its own. So I'm going to push, and it's just literally kind of coming up. I got it to the 3. I let go. It's locked in. It's that easy. It's like literally, it's kind of a cool thing. Like, I kind of wish more cars actually had it so other people could experience it. But to me, it's super cool. Just these levers in general sell for some money because, again, this is a different lever. You have to have the button at the end. You have to have the other pieces that go along with it. I'm sure over the years a couple of people have pieced it together, but obviously you've got a couple pieces under the dash, the column's different, the solenoid, you've got the reservoir tank. That's how it works. So certainly can't thank Robert enough for selling me the car. I know I've said that a million times. I've said it in the Lincoln forum, but it's awesome, to me, to be able to see the features. Again, I did show in the radio video, I did show that pamphlet I've purchased over the course of time. That was cool because it actually shows you the features, and there's not a lot of features. I guess in closing, what I'll talk about is, the speed control, again, does not have it. It doesn't have the optical eye that would have sat, you'll see that little deal that'll sit right there. That's for the automatic headlight dimmer. I think it was technically Chevrolet or Chevy called it the optical eye. I think it was the same manufacturer that manufactured the piece. But that was another feature, the speed control I mentioned, the AM/FM radio. The rear seat belts, I think technically, I forget if in 65 the seat belts were an option. I think they were. This one has the seat belts here, so you can kind of see that. It also has the rear seat belts from a 65. Robert sourced these, and these are this is what the buckle looks like for 65. So pretty cool stuff here. But you know, those are a few of the features. A few. There's obviously, you know, more stuff to talk about, and I'll hit on those. There's actually technically another feature, I don't know if you can tell, that ties into the doors. I'll leave a hint, but I'll talk about that in a future video. It's not in a feature that you would expect. So please consider just at least a thumbs up, leave a comment, you know, even if it's 1 or 2 words, that all helps. The channel's going to continue to grow. Really looking to put the pedal down and just do a lot more videos going into the new year. The videos are getting easier because I got new software that I've been using that makes it just easier for me. And I've got some new audio equipment that's going to make the stuff even better, I think, from a audio standpoint. So I'm excited about it. Most importantly, having access to the cars, the literature, a lot of the stuff that I bought over the years, a lot of the stuff that came with this car. I got to thank Robert, man. He gave, which was part of the deal, so many parts and extra stuff and literature and, you know, books and just, I mean, I could do probably a year's worth of content just literally talking about this car, talking about the stuff that came with it, talking about some of the stuff that he has done to this car, including the kick panels, redoing the seats, but also he's got the Jim Wallace carpet kit. He's got Dynamat all beneath it. Technically has this right here. I did drop this the other day instead of having it hooked up here. This is a rear view camera that he installed. Actually, it's pretty cool, but it was bright out that night, you know, and it was kind of foggy, so I put that down. And I guess I'll show you, here's where the camera's at, right there. Boom. So, you know, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict, and I'll keep bringing you guys videos if you keep enjoying them. Stay on the rise. Thanks for watching. Later.
Will be Motordom's symbol of quality, an automobile and a tradition.